Hello and welcome to Woodshed Reviews, where we look at films old and new, good and bad. And today we're looking at two film adaptations of Judge Dredd.
I am the law!
I am the law.
My choice for this one because I just felt like I hadn't seen the 1995 Stallone version for a while. And then there was a what would you call it, a rebooted, readapted version in 2012 starring Carl Urban.
A new interpretation.
Yeah, that would be it, yeah.
I knew they'd do that.
So I suppose we'll maybe start with Judge Dredd, just a brief overview. He's from the 2000 AD comic strip, which is a British cult comic, started in 1977, and Judge Dredd would be their most famous export, I would say, by a considerable margin. There's some others here and there, but he's had two film adaptations, so that kind of trumps anyone else in the roster, and two very different adaptations as well. So I thought it'd be interesting to sort of compare and contrast.
Yeah, so it was fun to see the 95 one again. Been a while.
Yeah.
I remember watching it many times back in the day. Didn't quite live up to my expectations, but yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so in the comics, he's been going for, since 1977, so he's as old as us. And as far as I'm aware, he's never removed his helmet, or we've never seen his face. And the comics also progress year by year, so Judges, each year that they're written, he's portrayed and drawn, is getting older and older. So he must be getting on a bit now.
Yeah, so that's quite cool.
I'm assuming he must be coming up for his 80th birthday at this point.
Wow, he's still going strong.
Still going strong on Mega City 1. So yeah, but that was that's a big thing about Judge Dredd. We never see his face in the comics, but I guess in the 1995 film, you've got Sylvester Stallone, one of the highest paid stars at the time. So I guess you're not going to pay all that big bucks and then not see his face.
Yeah, so I don't know at what stage he was attached, before the script was written or what. But
yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so whatever star they were going to get was going to probably have to take the helmet off, I'd imagine.
Unavoidable, sir.
It's a shame because I thought Stallone looked pretty good with the helmet on, and shame he couldn't do a whole film like that and get over his ego, maybe.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah, because the storyline's basically Judge Dredd's framed for murder.
Yeah.
And he's stripped of his status as a judge.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, right off the bat, you got this script which is written this way, so he has to take off his helmet if he's no longer Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's sentenced and banished to the Cursed Earth.
Yeah, so the Cursed Earth is this sort of vicinity all around Mega City 1. We're far into the future, apocalyptic wars and famines and environmental collapse have meant that humanity effectively, or certainly everyone in America where this is set, and Mega City 1 is effectively a ginormous New York City, and everyone's kind of congealed into this small, relatively small space. For the amount of people, and around that there's the Cursed Earth, where people sort of wander lawlessly. A
lot of mutants about, and basically a radioactive wasteland sort of thing.
Yeah, and so we spend a bit of time in there as opposed to being in Mega City 1, which is fine, but I guess maybe as an introduction, as a first film to Judge Dredd, it maybe felt like you could have done that with a sequel, two or three down. We've also got the villain who's like part of Judge Dredd's past. He turns out to be his sort of cloned brother, effectively.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing about the 95 film, it does use a lot of lore from the comics, but I think the main issue with it is it kind of ruined the Judge Dredd character.
The law doesn't make mistakes.
It humanizes him by taking off the helmet and gives him a character arc.
Yeah, which I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of Judge Dredd comics, obviously, so maybe someone can say, oh, well, they did have a character arc for him in issue 167 in 1983 or something. Yeah. But generally speaking, as a first sort of like term, Judge Dredd is supposed to be a bit more stoic and a bit more unmoving, I guess, in that kind of emotional kind of context.
Emotions. There ought to be a law against them.
I think apparently he does grow a little, but it's over a long time.
Yeah, I would talk, well, as we're saying, we're 45 years into Judge Dredd comics, so obviously a little kind of development and personal growth is appreciated.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, they're treating him more as a sort of, just a more of a kind of typical Stallone action figure, effectively.
It felt like he was just doing another action comedy like Demolition Man or something.
Is it cold in here, or is it just me?
Good memory.
But I guess watching it back, I can kind of understand they're spending a lot of money on this, and that's maybe the big problem, because Dredd himself's a bit more of a cult concern, I would say. Mm-hmm. So he's maybe not someone you spend, I think, 100 million or something back in 1995, and then expect to kind of like portray him appropriately.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to bring in the crowds. Mm-hmm. You do need to kind of, if you're going to do that, I can kind of understand that you need to kind of lighten it up a little bit.
No, wait! You can't eat me! I've got eczema! I've got warts! I've had gonorrhea! Eat Dredd! He works out!
Yeah, and I think the director, he wanted to do a gritty, violent, ultra-violent portrayal of Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
I think he was a genuine fan.
That's Danny Cannon.
Yeah. But Stephen E. D'Souza, who worked on the script, he was commissioned to write a PG-13 script.
Okay.
So they're kind of pulling in different directions.
Yeah.
And I believe they took the film about 4 or 5 times to the censors and they had to cut it down, keep cutting it to get it passed. And I think Stallone wanted to cut it even further to get it to a PG-13.
Okay.
But didn't quite manage it.
Yeah.
But that shows you just how much was cut out.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I didn't realise that, but there was a few moments in the film where it looked like there's a bit when Stallone gets headbutted by this, I can't remember his name, one of the Angel Clan, the cyborg.
Okay.
And it looks very awkwardly kind of cut, as if there's a missing piece there.
Hallelujah, brother!
I'm sure, because I know there's a scene, I think, near the start, and I think Judge Dredd comes into a room, all guns blazing.
Yeah.
And you can tell that was cut, because there's a couple of shots you see limbs lying in the corner of the screen. And you're like, okay, we didn't see that happen. And I think the robot at one stage grabs somebody, and apparently they built a life-size dummy of the actor.
Okay, to pull them apart.
So that wasn't seen.
Robot! Rip his arms and legs off. No! You save his head for last. I don't want him to miss anything! Anything!
It's a classic thing where you need to kind of pick a lane with something like that, and it's interesting watching it from our vantage point now, because you can see all these things a lot clearer than I probably did when I first watched it. I've seen it a few times when I was younger and stuff, and I was always kind of like, yeah. Watching it back this time, I could kind of appreciate a little more.
Yeah, I think the intro, like the comic book style intro, that was cool, and the intro to Mega City 1, the shots of the city, it felt quite exciting. And
yeah, it looked quite good. I mean, there's some CGI, 1995 CGI and stuff like that, which doesn't really hold up, obviously, but some of the stuff on the streets, when we get down to ground level, is quite good. Looks kind of very Blade Runner effect, I would say.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't feel like they've got a lot of room. It's got that feeling of manoeuvrability, that there wasn't a huge amount of room on the sound stages with the bikes coming in and stuff. It just felt like they were just coming around a corner. And
yeah, it looked a bit clunky, didn't they?
Yeah, the design was maybe not the best.
Yeah, a bit plasticky and...
Yeah, I think some of the lighting was a little flat as well in certain... generally speaking, but certainly in certain shots, it just felt like you could have had a little bit more dynamic lighting for something like that, a film of that ilk.
Yeah.
Which I think they got right with the next film, which we'll come to. But with this one, it just felt a little, I'm not a lighting expert, but it just felt a little flat and not very interesting. Which is fine if that's what you're doing, but that's not the world of Judge Dredd. And it's that sort of thing where it's not going to impress the fans of the comic book, and then it's not strong enough a film in its own right for a general audience member.
They messed up the character, I think. But there's a lot to admire in it. I think Stallone looked pretty good as Judge Dredd.
I think he's well cast. I don't think he was badly. I think there's a lot of criticism of his acting in it. I think it was more this might be splitting hairs, but it's more how he approached the character, sometimes with the speech and the syntax and stuff like that. And it's not so much that he's not good, so much as like maybe someone just needed to kind of tap him on the shoulder and say, maybe we'll try that line a little differently.
Drop your weapon! These plugs are under arrest!
Yeah, so Judge Hersey, played by Diane Lane, that was his kind of partner.
And become a sort of love interest, but didn't really feel earned.
No, she was kind of underused.
I think a lot of people were quite underused in it.
There's a lot of characters in it, yeah.
Yeah, Diane Lane kind of comes and goes in it a little bit. She gets a fight scene against another character, but that character again is, I can't even remember her name or what she does because she's so...
Played by Joan Chen.
Yeah, but I'm not even like 100% sure what she was doing in that film. I'm like, okay, but they get to have a fight, but it feels kind of pointless, really. It's a nice action scene, but no kind of weight behind it. Interestingly, you can shoot me down for this one if you want, but Rob Schneider wasn't terrible.
Oh, that'll win him over.
Actually, I agree. He's kind of like the character you'd find in the comics as well.
Yeah, he's okay in this. You know, he's maybe we didn't need him in it or something like that because he doesn't really have anything to do in it particularly. I guess they try and they give him this, he's like a hacker, computer expert, and then at the end he hacks the ABC Warrior droid, but not really. He just kind of pulls out its wires. I guess I would go for something there.
What's the matter with you? Oh, is he pissed?
I was like, yeah, this isn't terrible. You know, it's not particularly great, but it held up a little better than I thought it was gonna, and because I hadn't seen it for a while. And yeah, I think that's about as much as I could sort of say about it before we maybe move on to the next film.
Dredd? That's it? No goodbye?
Goodbye, Ursh.
So that leads us on to, there was a hiatus of about, what we're talking, 17 years. And then they tried again with 2012's Dredd, or Dredd 3D.
Juries. Executioners. Judges.
Well, we're at that point in cinema where 3D was trying to make a comeback for like the third or fourth time.
Thanks to James Cameron.
Yeah, I guess it would have been Avatar. Yeah, wouldn't it? That's a few years, 3 years after Avatar, so everything was being, I guess at least it was filmed in 3D, whereas I think a lot of films were just kind of post-production, kind of some sort of like...
We need to get in an act. So.
Yeah, we'll do this episode in 3D. So 2012's Judge Dredd, Carl Urban, as we've said, doesn't remove the helmet. It's a much lower budget, not low budget, but it's a more kind of like appropriate budget, I think, for Dredd, in which you can take a risk.
Yeah, so it's not as epic as the 95 film. It's all set in one day, a pretty straightforward sort of mission.
Yeah, in one location, in one of the mega city tower blocks. We're just following Dredd. He's got a rookie with him who he has to shadow for the day and assess, see if she's going to cut it. This rookie hasn't quite passed the whatever tests or whatnot at the academy, but
because of her psychic abilities, they want her to pass.
She's able to sort of read people's minds or sense what people are thinking or doing.
I felt like she was kind of the hook for the story, wasn't she? Almost like the main character.
Yeah, she's the one that's got the arc, and she's the one who's got the emotional responses to stuff. And Judge Dredd is like fairly unflinching and fairly stoic. And there's a moment when she kind of like maybe gives him a few home truths, and he just kind of
He's a victim, not a perp, and until my assessment is formally over, I'm still entitled to dispense justice, and that's what I just did by letting him go. Maybe that'll be the one difference I do make.
Yeah, he's going to kind of think about it, but he's probably just going to go on doing what Judge Dredd does.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more appropriate for his character. And yeah, as you're saying, she is perhaps, you could argue, our main protagonist in it. And our main antagonist is Lena Headey.
Yeah, she was very good playing Mama. So she was a hooker who killed her pimp and then kind of took over his business.
Anyone else, you'd say it was bullshit, right? Not with Mama. Her trademark is violence.
They've concocted this new drug called slow-mo, which slows time down to like 1%, did they say?
1%, yeah.
And you get like a lovely kind of visual kind of visage of everything kind of shimmering and glowing, and you can imagine that that's the reason why these people in this living these lives are taking it effectively. I mean, it's obviously all drugs in that kind of regard are an escape, but you get a nice visual cue as to why they would be doing this,
Skin him. Toss him over the balcony.
Hit him with a little slow-mo first.
Sure.
Yeah, there's 3 sort of drug dealers who are sort of muscling in her turf or something like that. So she sends a signal by slow-moing them and throwing them off. I think they get skinned as well, and then thrown off the balcony from 200 feet up. So this leads to Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson being called out to Peachtree's, I think, to investigate this. They capture one of Mama's lieutenants, I guess. They're going to take him for questioning. She doesn't want that to happen because she's pretty sure that they'll break him and uncover her plan for slow-mo. So she manages to shut down the lockdown. There's these sort of like, I guess, storm barriers or war barriers or something like that to shut down the whole block, and instructs that nothing is going to be happening until these 2 judges are taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our story, effectively. We're in Peachtree block for the rest of the film. Yes. And it's about Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson trying to survive, trying to escape.
They're kind of trying to make their way up to get Mama as well, aren't they?
You're giving us 2 options, defend or hide.
Yes, sir.
What about we attack? Head straight for Mama.
Is that an option?
Well, she's guilty. We're judges.
And yeah, it's sort of like 200 levels of carnage, lots of blood, body parts flying around, doesn't take any hostages with that kind of stuff. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it, which feels like we're not really selling it. Because there's not much more to the story than that. There's more to the 1995 Judge Dredd story, but it works. For me, it works in its favour.
What did you think about, what's his name, Carl
Urban? Yeah, I liked him. And I thought I think, as I was saying before with Stallone, it was more maybe just the angle that they came in at Judge Dredd wasn't quite right. I felt they got it better with Carl Urban with this one, with his delivery of lines.
12 serious crimes reported every minute, 17,000 per day. We can respond to around 6%.
Which 6%?
Your show, rookie. You tell me.
I liked his pragmatism in it. That kind of worked, and that felt very kind of Dredd. He didn't get emotionally involved. He's quite cut off from these sort of things, and he's just thinking tactically. Whereas that's contrasted with his partner, who I liked her. She wasn't like this kind of like kick-ass girl boss or something like that. She was very out of her depth to begin with, very scared. Wasn't really sure if she was making the right decisions and stuff. But as it went on, she gradually kind of found her voice. For a girl who's like looked about 19 or something, you can understand that would be, even with her power, which is not going to stop a bullet, at the end of the day.
No, because she's not even wearing a helmet.
I'm wondering when you'd remember you left your helmet behind.
Sir, a helmet can interfere with my psychic abilities.
think a bullet might interfere with some more.
I think maybe that for me, it went maybe a bit too realistic with Judge Dredd's armor. You know, it's kind of tactical kind of suit he was wearing.
Yeah.
They kind of did away with his golden shoulder pads.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bit of a departure costume-wise, I thought. He looked like a regular person, whereas I think Judge Dredd needs a bit more presence, and nobody really knew his name. You know, everybody should know Dredd's name and fear him.
Come on, give me a break, Judge Dredd. Dredd? God.
I loved the close-up shots of Dredd. They looked like very similar to headshots you see in the comics. When he's delivering lines and close-up, it's like, oh yeah, that's Judge Dredd. But when you see him walking about, you're like, there's something missing here. I think it's maybe the way it's shot as well, and the costume. I think the actor's very good, but he seemed a bit lost in the suit almost as well.
Admirable.
Yeah, it suits with the kind of gritty look that we're going for sure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't very comic book. That's what, the style of the film either. It was more realism rather than comic book.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
So I feel like both films haven't quite hit the mark.
Wait.
If you're a Judge Dredd fan, I guess the 95 film will probably just annoy you more than anything, whereas you'll be a bit more acceptable with a more recent film.
I think so. So as sort of like people who are somewhere in between, we're not Dredd heads particularly, and we're just here for like a good film. Will we give our Woodshed ratings to 1995's Judge Dredd and then Dredd? So do you want to go first with this one, with 95 one, and then I'll go first with the next one?
Yeah, gosh, it's a tough one. I mean, I watched it and I enjoy it. It feels like a very average film at the end of the day.
Sure.
So I guess I'll give it a 3, which is quite high, maybe.
Yeah, it's slightly on the higher side, but fair enough. I 2.5. I think after both viewings, I was like, yeah, it's a 2.5. It's not terrible. I can't go up to average at the moment. So I'll give it 2.5.
I knew you'd say that.
That'll lead me on to Dredd, which I'm going to say a 3.5 for Dredd. And I probably would have given that a 4 back in the day. I still liked it, but yeah, there may be some things in it, looking back on it now, that it could have done a little better, things like what you're saying. But it's certainly a better film for me, a better film overall, and a better adaptation of Judge Dredd. But yeah, maybe if I reviewed this 10 years ago when it came out, I might have said 4. Today, 3.5.
Yeah, I think it would have been an amazing film on the big screen, especially the slow-mo and stuff. But I think 3.5 is definitely fair, and I'll go with that as well.
You're going to copy me with that one? All right, fair enough.
Court's adjourned.
Yeah, both worth checking out. I say if you want a nice, easy double bill, check out Judge Dredd from 1995 and Dredd from 2012. But for now, that's all we've got for you. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
I am the law. I am the law.